So glad. I'm so glad and grateful for number one, Brooke, and everybody on the board for this conference. It is things like this that allow us to have the connection, the genuine connection um, with this particular population, because this population, I feel, is somewhat silenced. There's a lot of biases in this particular population, and just to be able to impact this population in a way that brings a unique unity, I'm definitely appreciative. So, hello, everybody. This is what I'm actually going to do. To begin with, and before actually putting up the PowerPoint, I cannot see the PowerPoint. I don't really know kind of how that works, but I do want to get an idea of who I have in the virtual airlines per se, just basically where you are from, what is your affiliate as it relates to this particular area. You can even put your name or your title, why you're here, what you're expecting. Just, I want to know who I am. I see Adoptee from Boston. Thank you, Michelle. Boston in the house. I'm actually from Texas, um, Dallas, Texas, to be exact. Reunited birth mother. We got Maryland, Ohio. When I see the word Ohio, I'm thinking of there's a TV show that used to be out, and he's like Ohio, and so it's literally in my mind as far as like where I get Les Bon Port. Oh wow. Okay, so we have some international adoptees. Baby Scoop. What's up, Baby Scoop? What's up, Dirk? I like that. I like that. That's pretty awesome. Uh, Outside of Boston, Bruno. Um, can't catch everybody, but it is such an amazing honor. And I'm so excited that you guys decided to kind of just learn a little bit about something that I can relate to personally. As she said, my name is Ereka Howard, and I am an adoptee. I am a part of a domestic adoption. My biological mother is from Havana, Cuba, as well as we've got California in here. Um, my biological mother is from Havana, Cuba, as well as my grandmother. I am a first generation, with the exception of being adopted. I'm the first generation that has ever went to college. So we will go ahead and get started. Once I see the PowerPoint, we will go from there. Welcome, bienvenidos. I actually just got back from Cuba, so which is where my family is. Thank goodness the hurricane did not impact me at all. So I can't see the PowerPoint. I'm not really sure.
You have co-host, so
should I?
You have two monitors, Ereka, by chance?
Say that again?
Do you have two monitors by chance?
No.
Okay. There was an issue with like screen mirroring for someone else today, so I'm not sure.
Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Before I actually get started, I want to go ahead and give someone an opportunity. I'm going to pull up the actual PowerPoint on my end, find it, and then go ahead and do it that way, alternatively. So it gives you guys to kind of get maybe a little 2-minute break to kind of get to know everybody that is here, because I did actually attend the last session, and there was a lot of people from different parts of the states in here. So give me just a second. I'm going to, let's see. You guys want to go grab a quick snack, take a quick break, you are more than welcome to do so.
While she's doing that, does anyone need a reminder if you're getting CE credits? Is anyone getting CEs who needs any reminders about that process? You do want to have your name matching your real name. You want to be able to be visible on camera. And then we do have the survey that will drop in at the end for you. If you're here for CE credits, let me know. While Erica's getting her slides ready to go. Oh. Technology's perfect, right? That's what we learned in the last session with Suzanne was technology was perfect, perfect, perfect. But we know that's not true. How is everyone enjoying the conference so far this morning? Thumbs up? People good? People happy? Yeah, there's been some great presentations so far, right? Yeah.
How many conferences have you had?
April? I don't know, a lot.
Many. I think we're on a double. I think we're 30 years old as an org, and I think there's been not as exactly as many of those for conferences, but we're in the double digits. And we used to do them in person, and they were fantastic. It's fantastic virtually too, but the in-person ones were pretty next level. It's always good to be, in person in space together, but then more folks can come because we are virtual. So there's that.
The PowerPoint is thinking. Give it just a second.
Ereka, one other question too. Are you doing from Google Share, Google Slides, or like Canva?
It's actually a PowerPoint that I'm doing, just a basic PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Yeah, there's something buggy in the matrix today.
Okay.
So yeah, just don't fret. We got you. And if Jean also, if all else fails, is there a copy of the slides that you can, or one of us can pull and?
No, I don't have them. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm working on changing the name, which is carrying over.
Oh, I see. Yep. We're still on Joyce's, but no worries. We all know where we are, but if it can be done, awesome. But if it can't, no sweat at all.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a way to do it. So.
Okay. Leave it be. Don't even worry, but thank you for trying.
Sure.
I believe we almost.
Okay.
Okay, I'm trying to see what you guys can see. Promise I have nothing that I should be ashamed of. Bam, here we go. Let's do this. Okay, so can everybody see the slides? I mean, not the slides, but the single slide. Can't see you. I'm gonna do this. Okay. All right. So again, I'm just so grateful. Truly grateful and appreciative to be able to even do this. So identity formation in adoptees. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so this is the icebreaker that I actually wanted to do. I want to see if we can do you have the first link, Jean, to the icebreaker that I was going to do? I was actually going to do a mindfulness moment.
Let me pull that back up.
Okay. If not, I have them on standby. So if I'm actually going to,
Where do you want that? In the chat or where?
can you guys hear this music in the background? Are y'all able to hear the music in the background?
Very quiet.
But are you able to kind of hear it a little bit? Yes, thumbs up, no. Marty, Sarah, are you guys able to? No, I see some head shaking. What it is, let's see. A little bit. Okay. Well, a little bit is enough per se. Try, I guess that's the beauty of mindfulness. You have to really kind of focus in on it. So if everybody can close their eyes just for a moment. And I want you to think about your happy place. I want you to really focus in on that inner person per se and what it means to you, what identity means to you, and why it's so important. Sometimes we define ourselves by the dictations of what other people think of us, as opposed to what we think about ourselves. And imagine yourself on the most peaceful island where you are away from everyone, there's no distractions. You're not in a hurry for anything. You're right on time. You're not late. You're here. And you're happy. Whether that's being with your children, being with your family, being with your dog. Just focus in on that moment. You might hear waves. You might hear birds.
Harry? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, that's in Cuba. My happy place is in Cuba.
Large corporations have made commitments to spend billions of dollars annually.
And the reason why it is so important to me is because that is where my identity is, with my family, my biological family in Cuba. And you're taking 3 deep breaths, focusing in on this moment. forgetting about the most recent events, things that you cannot control. The only thing that you control is you. You can barely control that. And as you bring yourself back to the here and now, you're happy, you accept, but you're not complacent to your present moment. Taking 3 deep breaths, holding it for 2, 3 times. 3, 2, 1. 2, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. And opening your eyes and being present. Okay. So I want to know in the chat box, how did that feel to be present? How did that feel to be present? I know a lot of times for us, especially with the most events that have occurred, it's hard for us to be present. I'm not seeing any responses. I want to make sure that I am seeing everybody. Insightful. Kathleen, thank you so much. And I also want to include that I will be giving a free copy of my most recent book. I'm not sure how I can do that, Jean, but I do want to give a free copy to a participant, I guess someone who can I guess participate, because I really believe the participation is everything, and I don't want this to just be about me. I want this to be about the attendees. So I will get that information towards the end, and I will get their information after we get done, their address, and I'll even sign it. This will actually be the book that I will be sending out to a free participant. Not a free participant, a participant. So let's go ahead and get started again. Share. Okay. Here do we go. So, stages of development. Erik Erikson defines 8 particular stages. And those particular stages is, of course, in front of you. Trust versus mistrust, which is the infancy stage, which emphasizes the need for consistent and reliable care. Initiative versus guilt, identity versus role confusion, and I'm just kind of going through all of them, not in a specific order, but I will be highlighting, of course, identity versus role confusion. Why? Because we are here trying to figure out what identity formation is and how it contributes to us overall, not just as an adoptee, not just as a first adoptive parent, but just overall. Jean, if you have that video, can you please pull it up?
The one time-stamped or the
Yes.
reading?
Yes.
The time-stamped one?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on, I'm gonna need to share screen.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
Y'all are lucky that we're not in person because, oh my gosh, my energy would be off the chain.
All right, everyone can see my screen. We've got a video up here. And as fate would have it, there's somebody doing something in my next door neighbor's backyard that is rather loud. So my apologies if the Zoom filter isn't catching this. So here we go.
This is very important. Now, what we're talking about today is the crisis of identity, or an identity crisis. An identity crisis is part of the adolescent stage of Erikson's psychosocial development. Adolescence begins at puberty, around the age of 12 or thereabouts, and then extends all the way up until autonomous adulthood, when the person finally feels like they can be an independent adult. During this stage, a person is trying to discover who they are. They're trying to understand their place in society, their role within the people that they interact with. The most important relationship for an adolescent is friends, teenagers, peers in high school. The crisis in the adolescent stage is the discovery of one's identity or falling into role confusion. Through the interaction with their friends and their peers in high school, a person develops an understanding of who they are, or they fall into some sort of role confusion where they're not sure of who they are. Hopefully, this crisis is resolved positively. The question remains, how does one develop a positive identity?
Is that about right?
Yep, we're good to go. And then it should go directly back to my screen, correct? I think. Okay, so what does that mean? So a lot of us, especially myself, when I would say around that time as an adolescent, that's when I actually decided to act out. As a matter of fact, I stole things from the grocery stores. I actually dibbled and dabbled in a few drugs because I was trying to find my identity and I didn't really know who I was at that particular moment, not to mention being abused by my adoptive family. I have what you would call complex trauma, and I'm sure plenty of you all are familiar with what complex trauma is. That is when there is a plethora of trauma that you can relate to per se, as it relates to our experiences. So identity formation in adoptees. So there are, number one, if you are also familiar with the stages of change, I used to always comply them as PCPAM, pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, acceptance, and those different things of learning how to understand when a person is actually ready for change. So to relate it to adoptees, the pre-contemplation stage means when a teen adoptee is in this stage and they may understand on a cognitive level he or she is adopted, almost as a matter of fact, but has not taken time to consistently reflect on what it means for him or her as it relates to their first family, their biological family, adoptive family. In my case, I was actually not given the environment to figure out who I am in general because my family was African American descent. I was what I would call that white dot full of a lot of brown dots. And that created a lot of confusion. Growing up, I did not always really have the space or encouragement or advice to even do so. I just went throughout life as normal. And additionally, as a transracial adoptee, as myself, I was putting on a front per se, just to fit in, which then led to me going and trying to fit in with environments that I was not even set up to fit in with. But as an adoptee, as an adolescent, that's what we do. What looks good always might not be good. Thankfully, I didn't get too much in trouble and my record is clean. But I probably would have ended up in juvenile if that was the case. But thankful to sweet baby Jesus that that did not happen. Contemplation, the next stage, is I have people coming in, and I'm just going to hit admit when they actually come in. So contemplation, Atina, and this right here is a picture of me and my caseworker, Nancy. So I was adopted out of Dallas, Texas, and then further moved to Midland, Odessa, which is about 5 hours away from Dallas, Texas, if you're not speeding. And she was a huge pillar to my adoption story, because I found out at the time that she also could relate to foster care and adoption. I then got that information from my adoptive family as I was getting older. So contemplation, this is a stage where uncomfortability about your adoption story might kind of take into play, and you might even experience a lot of your friends at that particular time. They might make jokes. For me, I always got that question of, is that your mom or is that your grandmother? Is she really your mom? Let me see your hair. Or I would even get bullied to the point to where my hair would get pulled by my friends, even my cousins and other people who I trusted, because I was different. And growing up, my family always instilled in me the statement of, you're different. Don't expect anything different from other people who cannot relate to you. I always got names like that yellow bone per se, but I did not understand what that meant until I actually got to high school, what yellow bone meant. And it reflected my skin tone. It reflected my identity. It reflected my culture. And so that confused a lot of things as it relates to me finding out who I am in general, which made me, again, go to stealing things and acting out. Types of trauma. As I said before, acute, chronic, or complex. As many of you all know, we have all experienced an international pandemic. Several years ago, we all went through a pandemic that influenced us and the way we think about life, as well as the most current events of things that we relate to as it relates to politics. So acute trauma actually is something that is a one-time traumatic event. It's usually short-term. It doesn't last as long as your complex trauma does, depending on who the person is. Now, consecutively, everybody is different, and we are all made up of different genetics, experiences, environments that contributed to our overall well-being as it relates to who we are and what our identity means to us, no matter if you're an adoptee, no matter if you were exposed to drugs or alcohol. Chronic trauma, which is multiple traumatic events, which may vary in circumstance. Assault at school, car accident, medical trauma, chronic trauma, they all have something where they can contribute to something that is not as extensive as complex, but not as inextensive as acute. So as I said, complex trauma basically begins early in life. Mine, it began early in my life when I was adopted. My biological mother was a heroin and cocaine addict, and I am what you would consider a drug baby. And I have a memory deficiency, I also was dropped from a standing position from my biological mother. I also experienced, as I said, traumatic experiences of abuse as it relates to my adopted mother, biological mother, and even family members within my adoption community. And so that developed a complex trauma. And as I said before, a lot of us, we went through a pandemic. We lost family members, we lost probably even companions. We've lost several people who were not able to contribute to our life overall, which then allowed us to hands-on become a challenge to the society. Okay, I might actually take off my glasses, y'all, because this is, I see a glare, but because of the pandemic, I actually had to have glasses because it contributed to when I got COVID. My eyesight then went extremely, extremely bad. So I'm going to take off my glasses. So here's where you guys are actually going to get involved. And I'm going to pay attention to the chat as well as Jean. I want you to answer these particular questions. And then Jean, if you can kind of coincide and let me know what people are saying, and then I can understand what's going on. So finish this sentence. I enjoy working in this field. It could be you enjoy being a dog mom, you enjoy being a mother, you enjoy being a caretaker, you enjoy being a self-traveler. Whatever it is, why do you enjoy it? Next question. Adoption means to me. So fourth, I am changing the world by, and I practice self-care by doing, as you all might know, before this presentation began, I actually exhibited a self-care activity because I truly believe that we all need some form of self-care. So go right ahead and I will pay attention to the chat. Jean, thank you so much for as well. It could be anything. Why do you enjoy working in this field? For me, I actually work for my 9 to 5 outside of my incorporation. I actually work for the Salvation Army. And if you all are familiar with the Salvation Army, you know they are an international organization who actually helps the needy. I work with veterans, these people who have complex trauma, acute trauma, so forth and so on. And I love it, but I enjoy working in that field because it's meaningful. I get to see and experience how veterans see the world and why they decided to serve this country. The importance, I know we're actually getting ready to celebrate and a huge, huge milestone for them as it relates to. Now, I can't see the chat. Adoptee defining home. Still translating. I see a heart. Let's see. 3 new messages.
Here, Sarah says, I enjoy working in this field because I want to be for someone else what I didn't have. Sharon says, I enjoy working in this field because sharing my story the last 29 years instead of keeping quiet the first 25 years of after my relinquishment, sharing is healing. Kathleen says, in helping others, I help myself become more compassionate. Christelle, sorry if I'm mispronouncing, I enjoy working in this field because it brings me joy to see people reaching their potential.
Next one, adoption means to me. For example, adoption means to me life, change, resilience, strength, power, challenges.
Adoption is who I am, the good, the bad, and the confusing, from Dirk. I relate to that. Kathleen says, adoption means living in duality for me. I hold my joy and my grief side by side. I am changing the world by speaking up on my lived experience as a late discovery adoptee. We got a ditto for Dirk from Sharon.
Okay.
Mhm.
And next one, how do you practice self-care? How do you practice self-care? What do you do? For me, I go to the gym, sweat, and that is my way of staying out of jail.
Yeah, you're not alone there. Swim and pray, the gym. I'll add meditation.
Prayer, meditation, helping adoptees, birth parents, walking, talking. Hey, Keith.
Mhm.
No, solitude, playing music. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, here we go. Now, this is my birth family. Identity discovery. Identity is the question, who am I? Complex. We answer these questions all the time. Finding those and getting those answers are very complicated depending on who you are, where you come from, or how you formed your identity. This might mean your birth name, birth parents, birth story, country, culture, language, customs, heritage, or family languages. For me, again, this is my family in Cuba, which is actually where I just came from last week. This time last week, I was in Tampa getting ready to fly back to Texas. Every year, 2 times out of the year, I go and I visit my family. And for the past almost 10 years, I've turned it into a mission trip to where I take more than 50 pounds of non-perishable items over to my family. And in that fact, when I come back, 4 suitcases turn into 2. One fits in the other. And I can take anything from flashlights. I don't know if you all are familiar, but recently Cuba experienced a island-wide blackout where they had no power. When I come back, I'm always appreciative of America, but I'm also very irritated as well because some things we take for granted. I did actually experience a blackout while eating over in Cuba. There were several blackouts. The water turned off at night, and I took what is a normal thing for me to take, which is a bucket bath, because there is no hot water at certain parts in certain times of while being on the island. And I take some really good wipes too. Some really good wipes and disinfectant too. But I always come back at least 10 or 12, 10 to 20 pounds lighter than what I came. So it could be a little bit beneficial in a sense. So identity explained. Actually, I want to go back. So my grandmother is the one in the white shirt, blue pants. My cousin, everybody you see in this picture is Afro-Cuban. Everyone that you see in this picture is Afro-Cuban. The gentleman on the right side with the green shirt, he's actually one of my mother's childhood friends, as well as the gentleman in the yellow shirt. The lady on the right side of me is someone that I've actually throughout the years called my second grandmother. She is the person that took care of my biological mother when she was 9 years old. This house, the house that they stay in, my family, is the same house that my mother was in almost 50 something, 60 years ago before coming to America. The lady on the right, bottom right side is my biological aunt, which my grandmother had 3 children, 2, including my mother, in Cuba, different fathers. My aunt's father decided not to let my aunt come to America during the Mariel boat lift. And in that retrospect, she had to remain on the island. I do have an uncle who is in Kentucky, Louisville. to be exact. The gentleman in the back right, the back left side is my cousin. His name, if I want to say this right, is Luis Yuniel Romero Toledo. Okay. He's also Afro-Cuban. A lot of times when I tell people, what is Afro-Cuban? And they're like, wait, what is that? Is that from Africa? Actually, a lot of Africans migrated to the island years ago. Therefore, in retrospect, Africans were birthed in Cuba, which I kind of coincided with America. There are different cultures here in America as well as other countries who speak different languages. So that is my biological. And the lady on the bottom right side, that is a great, great cousin. The gentleman on the bottom left in the middle is my uncle. My aunt and my uncle have been married for over 40 or 50 something years now. So this is a picture of my foster mother, the lady in the back that is holding me. I have two little cute little pigtails right here that are about the size of my pinky at this present moment. And she is my other caseworker. Her name was Rosa. My brother, which is next to me, he was also adopted. So I actually was not the only adoptee. However, I was the only transracial adoptee. Identity explained, lack of sense of self in ways that affect them socially, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, which in retrospect create isolation, codependency, overdependent, and fighter. This is my adoptive family. My daddy was your go-to cowboy. I have never saw him wear any shorts, tennis shoes to this day. His name is Stuart Leon Howard. My brother is on the bottom left side. Again, he was also adopted. And my mother, my late mother, I actually just lost in April. She passed away from a massive stroke in April. She is right above me in the green. Transracial identity, which is another aspect of identity. TRA as well is known as the complexity of racial identity. In order to survive and have a sense of belonging, acceptance, which can also be a little confusing for that adoptee as it was for myself and other people, not only as adoptees, but people in general, because we don't have that lack of exposure to who we are in general. Again, here's a lack of mirroring. I did not have. I always saw myself as African American. I learned the culture, what African American heritage was, Black Here Normal, Black History Month, and found out when I was 18 years old, when I decided to move out of my house and live on my own. I was actually homeless. I actually was abused physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and sexually, which is considered, again, complex trauma. Because I did not want to go back home after I graduated with my bachelor's. Let's see. All right, so this video, I don't know if any one of you all can relate to it, but this is a video that you all will watch that is a picture of my biological grandmother in the white shirt. She is actually on government assistance as well as has been homeless. So when the adoption took place, she actually ended up being homeless on the streets and sleeping in hospitals. So I guess you can say I was adopted for a reason and a purpose. My father is behind me, and my mother, of course, is in the middle. This was, I believe, back on my YouTube channel back in 2017, right after I got my 2018 is when I graduated with my master's. And so there was a little bit after. So that was actually that Christmas, my mother finally gave in and said, yes, I want to meet your biological grandmother. Now, if you're like me, you are trying to force your family on each other. And you're like, you guys have got to meet each other. And that is exactly what I did. There were times where I would literally try to force a future on my family, to where I said, hey, my grandmother's right here. She stays right down the street, because my mother, adoptive mother, I actually did not like using the word adoption because that actually took away the love that I had for them, although there were challenges as I was growing up. But there were times where my mother was going through kidney failure, cancer, several blood transfusions, went through several issues with her health, and my grandmother lived right down the street. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I think it would be a good idea. Oh, look, my grandmother just showed up. But I really wanted that to happen. But then I had to realize, if she does not want to meet my grandmother, then my reunification is not for her. It's for me. And that brought a lot of acceptance for me in general as it relates to being an adoptee. Mind you, my biological mother passed away in prison when I was 15. And when I moved out of my parents' house at the age of 18 and put myself through college, my undergrad, my master's, and now my doctorate, I found out that she had already passed away 2 years before I actually found information, which I got all of my records, ordered to unseal all my records from the courthouse that I was born in Dallas, Texas, so that I can understand who it is and why I am the way that I am, why I function. So I was so excited when they decided to meet each other. Actually, I really kind of had to get over myself in trying to force something to happen, and took that ownership of why. And thank goodness for therapy. If you're like me and you studied clinical mental health counseling, you know that they require you to have 10 sessions. Now, as a speaker, a evolving speaker, I was not always this resilient in life. I was like, oh yeah, you fell and broke your leg. You can do it. Just get right back up. You got this. But then I realized, why did they break their leg? What is the underlying reason of why they broke their leg, and what makes them respond the way that they respond? Which then led to me actually going to therapy and studying clinical mental health counseling, and then working on my licensure soon after. So this was a very, very pivotal moment for me in my life. And I'm so grateful that they finally met each other. If you can play the video, it is amazing.
All right, everyone can see, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Glasses. May the gift of joy and the blessings of peace be yours this Christmas and in the new year. Yeah. You have a blessed Christmas. May God bless you, Stuart and Shirley Howard, Ereka's adopted parents, 2018. That it? Yeah, I understand.
So can you all hear me? Okay. So my grandmother barely spoke English. So the reason for my mother saying "sabe," because she barely spoke Spanish. And I did not always grow up. That was another identity crisis that I experienced in life, because I had reunited with my biological roots. However, I could not even communicate with them. And as I've gotten older and I've taken several trips back to Cuba, I've learned how to adapt and assimilate into the culture that I once was before I had gotten adopted. And that is an amazing, resilient story that I know many of you all can relate to. I mean, we were placed in environments that we didn't even have a choice to be in. We just had to adapt. A lot of times when I speak at different conferences, I always don't call us adoptees, or birth, or those who are not adoptees but adaptees, we're resilient. We're probably one of the most strongest human beings on this entire planet. Everybody, number one, if you're not an adoptee, if you're not an adoptive parent, if you're not anywhere where you can relate to this triad, because you are in this field of foster care and adoption, whether you're a social worker, counselor, therapist, mindfulness, meditation instructor, you are probably one of the most strongest people in this entire universe, because you understand what it means to be resilient and how to adapt to particular things as it relates to being in this world today. So thank you for showing that video. Okay. I've got a documentary coming out, y'all. And so when I got back from Cuba, my most recent trip, I got something from my production company. Number one, this has been a dream of mine. Actually, it was not only a dream of mine, but several people actually told me. And after speaking with Angela, who also but she did the documentary Closure, I spoke with her personally a couple of weeks ago and told her, well, when she was at a conference, I told her how much it inspired me. And so I was finally able to financially fund an international documentary that consists of interviews as well as a historical perspective of what it is to have an identity crisis. And in this documentary, there are several interviews. It's very informal, as again, it is a reflection of my book that I recently wrote. And I'm also in the process of developing a children's book because several organizations have showed interest in me meeting in the need. And so I am actually doing that. So this is a documentary that I'm excited about, but I am also nervous, if I can be quite honest, because nobody likes to show and be transparent. But I truly believe that such a time as this, that it is time for us, not only me, but you as well on the other side of this screen and video, for us to take a stand in this particular field and to voice what it is that we are dealing with, so that other people can understand we too have been through things, and that we know what it means to have an identity crisis, or we can relate to those who can contribute to this field overall. So I am really excited for this to finally come out, and for you all to get a piece of my life and other things, as well as in my book. I do have several APA resources and references that is an informal thing and tool that can be utilized not only personally, but professionally, as well as the references and self-help activities, which I am hoping to have a journal formulated more so after. Stay connected. If you are currently on my social media, I do not apologize for anything that you might see, because I am the type of person where I share a lot of different tools, and it's kind of like a positive thing, but also I have learned to be a little bit resilient and honest and open, and a lot of my followers, they really appreciate it. But I'm on TikTok, still getting some things understood on there. I'm also on Facebook. I have 2 different Facebook pages. I have a personal and a professional one. I also have an Instagram, a YouTube channel, as well as a Twitter. It's not called Twitter anymore. I cannot think right off of the back what it is called, but Twitter is no longer the actual company name. And then I also have LinkedIn. So if you would like to connect with me, I definitely would love to connect with you. And I pray and hope that I said something that resonated with you and that you were able to take away. And I appreciate again Jean and the whole board for allowing me to do this presentation. I know it will not be the last, but thank you so much for everybody for tuning in and being resilient. And thank you.